Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand on Film. And for the first time, we are doing a spoiler special. So this is essentially our review of Spider-Man: No Way Home. If you've not seen it, go away, come back in a bit. Like, don't be here because we are just going to go full-blown spoilers. I am joined by once again Ollie, who joined me on the Spider-Man podcast. Say hello to the good people, Ollie.
Hiya.
And I'm once again joined by Ty, who joined me for Film Files. Say hi to the people, Ty.
Hey people.
Hey people.
Hi. Hey people.
Basically, we've all seen Spider-Man. And as we record this on Friday, the 17th of December, and it goes out on Friday, the 17th of December, I saw it on Wednesday at 7:00. I went pretty much straight after work. It was a mad dash to go pick up one friend, pick Ruby up, drop Ruby off, pick up another friend, go. I had a hot dog and pick and mix for my tea at the cinema because it was just like, we just got to go and we've got to get there. And you two both saw it on Thursday, I'm right in saying, yeah?
Yes.
So we're all kind of ready, willing to go. I just want to say this before I sort of inadvertently had a very Spider-Man filled 4 months because I rewatched all the other films for the podcast that me and Ollie did and recorded in August. I then started playing the games when I got my PS5. And then the podcasts have just come out over the last 3 weeks. So I've listened to them again. So it's been non-stop Spidey. So I was more than ready for this. Like,
sounds like amazing. Yeah.
I remember you saying as well. I remember us saying, I think it was in the Maguire bit, we were even kind of jokingly saying, why do we just hold this off? Like the weeks leading up to No Way Home, we can kind of build up hype for it and seem like really on it with our podcast, and then we can do a live react to No Way Home.
This has all been in the pipeline. Because Ty as well, because obviously like everyone will have heard Ollie and me talking through the films, but I mean, you are utterly convinced, or you are of the opinion that Spider-Man is the greatest character ever, not even like just comic books.
Yes, I have said this and I will 100% die on this hill. Like, I have no qualms in arguing this point till I am dead. Spider-Man / Peter Parker is the greatest character ever created in any medium at all, ever. Like, nobody comes close. I mean, people come close, but the way the character's built and like the way he's written and the way he's shown on screen and the way he's shown on games, there's like a accessibility of Peter Parker / Spider-Man that no other character has, I don't think.
He's very normal for a superhero, isn't he? Like most of your superheroes have something of it. Like they're either a billionaire or they're a soldier or they're a god or something like that. Spider-Man, like, he is one of the most normal. Like even some of the ones in DC that are that normal, like I guess Barry Allen would be your closest in terms of like normal. But like you're right, and there is a weird like Peter Parker Spider-Man in terms of marketability. They earn more than like Superman and Batman combined or something crazy like that. And you'd think that Batman would by far and away be the most marketable superhero, and Spider-Man just laughs at him with about 5 times as much revenue. It's crazy.
I think the thing about Spider-Man, I think that works so well is that I think if anybody in the real world, if you like, got superpowers, you'd think you'd want to be like the super cool, like Iron Man, or like the super cool Star-Lord with the I'm this and I'm that and I can do anything, or Batman being like no guns or stuff like that and thinking you're super cool. And basically Spider-Man just looks like he's out of his depth all the time because he's just a kid who's like, what the hell is going on? And that's how everybody would be. Every single person would be like, what the hell? And I think the thing that like grounds him so much is that he doesn't necessarily want these powers and he doesn't necessarily want to be a superhero. He just wants to be a dude with a girlfriend and go to school. But because he's got this thing in him that's like, it's important to do the right thing, and doing the right thing is helping people. And I don't necessarily want to help people in the sense that like I want to help everybody, but he's got this thing where his uncle's died on this, or his aunt died on this, to be like, okay, with great power comes great responsibility, and he lives off that to be like, I can't just sit back and do nothing because me uncle wouldn't, and that's the kind of thing that puts him head and shoulders above everybody else. I think is that it's like he doesn't want this. He just wants to be normal, but he's stuck in this loop of I've got to save the world, because if I don't, then me uncle will feel bad. Or me uncle will look at me and think you could have done something and you didn't. And that's the thing that like you sort of like, wow, when that sort of hits you, and that's the way he's written, is that it's like I don't necessarily want to do this, but I've got to, because I don't want to disappoint my uncle, who died on the idea of you can do anything and you can help anybody, and that's powerful when you think about it. Like no other superhero's written like that. Trust me, I have read a lot of comics. Nobody else has written like that. Not one person. Like that.
The closest I think you get is Superman, like, because Jonathan Kent teaches him that you can't save everyone.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Like that's the closest I can think of.
Yeah.
Everyone else is usually has some horrific backstory of just someone died and now you're a superhero.
Yeah. And it's like revenge, or it's this, or it's never like a vocation that you didn't ask for. And that's what Spider-Man is. It's like, I never asked for this, but I've got to do it.
Very Deus Ex Mankind Divided there, or Human Revolution. I never asked for this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah.
If anybody disagrees, by all means, come at me.
Wow.
I mean, he's definitely up there. I think my favorite superhero character is Batman, and I know that's a pretty basic choice, but I think Batman just got me when I was at the right age. And it was Batman and Robin that got me as well. Arguably, probably his worst film he's been in, but I was just hooked immediately. And then I've gone back. Then my mum was like, "Watch a good Batman film," and gave me, the Tim Burton one in '89. I was like, yes, and that went hand in hand with the animated series by Warner Bros. So object, and even on a silly objective, who'd win in a fight? Spider-Man would batter Batman. Like, Batman's just a rich guy who's depressed and has mental issues, and he relies on stealth, which doesn't work on Spidey because he's got his Spidey sense. Spider-Man just punches the head clean off. And
these are crossover comic. If you go back, these one, they kind of fight at the start, but then they end up being working together.
Of course they did. They're both so pure. I'm like, well, Peter's so pure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's from like '94, something like that. It is out there, but it's it's quite a good read, to be fair. There is a little. I think these two series were DC and Marvel crossover, but it's like 6 issues, and they all have one from each. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Right. What we're gonna do is we're essentially just gonna talk No Way Home. I'm gonna try and do it in sequential order. So if I say something and you kind of go, "Oh, but then this happened," just wait and we might get to it. Okay. This feels weird because we don't usually do spot. We usually end up talking about films that have been out for that long that everyone knows what happened in them anyway.
Yeah. If we're spoiling the film, it's kind of your fault for having not seen this film that's been out for 20 plus years.
I'm going against everything I've said to my students for the past 4 months. Where I've gone don't be that person. Don't be that person that spoils things.
This is you.
And then but then all I've had since Wednesday night is kids coming to me going, "Did you watch it? Did you watch it? Yeah, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me, and all that kind of stuff." So, right. The film picks up straight away from Far From Home. So we get the J. Jonah Jameson. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so the Mysterio thing and all that kind of stuff. The one thing for me straight away, a little bit of a nitpick, J. Jonah Jameson is never really explained. And what I mean by that is, how is it the same J. Jonah Jameson from the Tobey Maguire universe? And I don't know if it's supposed to be the same one, but why would you get the same actor doing it?
My guess would be, I mean, and it's not fair because if you haven't done your Loki homework, you don't know about variants.
I was just
so it's a variant, right? Okay.
I was going to say,
that would be my guess that he is a variant. So they look, but and I would get because variants do all look different because there's all the different Lokis, and Loki there's like alligator Loki, who's the best one objectively. But if there's if the multiverse is an infinite number of universes, then there will be an infinite number where it's the same. There'll be other universes where Tom Holland, Peter Parker is the Spider-Man as well. So like that would be my guess, but I agree they don't really explain it, and it kind of I did wonder if they were going to do anything about your Mephisto theory, because I think they say something very much like they say something quite early on about like it's like hinting that J. Jonah is trying to stir stuff up, and you didn't know if it was just like him being a right wing like Alex Jones type, or whether he was it Mephisto you thought he was?
I said in our podcast that I thought that the J. Jonah Jameson was the key to this multiverse thing happening, because for whatever reason it was the character and the actor appearing in two different universes, and it just seemed like if he was the only person who could do it, it must be something more to him.
I mean, the actual explanation is clearly the same as the James Bond M explanation of just because you have moved from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig, are you really going to turn around to Judi Dench and tell her she can't be M? No, you're not, because who else out there is better at it? Like,
I was just about to say that. I can't think of anybody else who could play J. Jonah Jameson.
We said this in the podcast. I will die on the hill. That's the best bit of comic book movie podcasting ever. There's literally no one better cast.
There really isn't,
in any other comic book film, like, because there's been some great casts, especially in the MCU. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is great. Everyone in the Avengers is really well cast, but J. Jonah, played by J.K. Simmons, flawless, absolutely flawless.
Do you know he fought to keep his moustache in this, because they were like, you don't need the moustache, and he was like,
yes, I do.
No, J. Jonah Jameson's got a moustache. Okay, that's what he's got. He's got a moustache.
I'm surprised he didn't get a wig.
I thought it was strange that he had no hair, but I suppose it's like that can be his little difference, or being a bit older, or it's one of them. But because it was obviously I assume it was a wig back in the day.
Yeah, it was.
He hasn't got had hair for ages, so I assume it was a wig. But
we kind of get the first casualty of the film, the relationship between Aunt May and Happy Hogan. It's on the rocks, and it's done for. She just wanted a fling, and poor Happy Hogan was not happy about that. He
wasn't happy.
Peter, MJ, Ned, and Aunt May then get arrested by the Department of Damage Control, and we then get told. Oh, actually, Peter gets told that he needs to lawyer up. Enter Matt Bleeding Murdock. Oh my God! Like I slapped Amy's legs. She was next to me, and I was just like giddy, like. And then my mate, who was next to Amy, turned to me and he went, "Is that Daredevil?" Because he'd not seen the Netflix thing. He said the only thing to him that realized that it was Daredevil was the red glasses. And that's I was just
sad. It's sad when you're with somebody in the pictures who you get super excited about something because it's like a callback to something, and they're like, what
I would argue there's one sadder though, because I went with my girlfriend and she knew, she just didn't care. Like, she didn't care that Daredevil appeared in this. I'm a big fan of the Netflix series. Even because I know like half of them are a bit pants. Like Iron Fist is bad. I don't really like Luke Cage, but Daredevil is great.
Yeah.
A lot of Jessica Jones is great, and then the Punisher's great. But seeing old Charlie there.
Yeah.
I don't know why it made me so happy. But I was just like so happy when I saw him, and I was like, yes.
Like if they'd put anyone else in that scene, if they'd just gone to generic lawyer number one, it would not have been the same, right?
Did you find it a bit weird, Ads? Sorry, did you find it a bit weird that he's opposite Jon Favreau, who played I don't know.
I didn't even have that connection.
Yeah, Obviously he plays what's he called? Foggy. He plays Foggy.
I didn't even put that together.
Well, there's a line in it when he says, "I think you should lawyer up," and Ben Affleck says that's a Foggy. Ben Affleck's Daredevil says that. Basically, the line that he says in the film. He said like the basic line when he's like, "I think you should lawyer up," like because of what's going on. Then when the talk, I can't remember where it is in the film, but they're talking and like he says something. And they're like, whatever's going on between when Favreau's Foggy and Affleck is Daredevil. And Daredevil says, I think you should lawyer up because of like X, Y, and Z type thing. And the line that he says is quite similar to like what he says. And he's like, what? So
I even at that point had it in the back of my head because we're doing multiverse stuff. Is Ben Affleck's Matt Murdock going to show up at some point? Like, is that going to be a bit too weird? Is that going to push the boat out a bit too far? If we get Ben, and I also did wonder if they're bringing in Matt, because Kevin Feige's obviously announced that he's going to be MCU's Matt Murdock, and that does make me think
they're not going to recast him. Yeah,
but also, is he going to appear in any future properties? I did for a second wonder if they were going to suit him up in this at all.
I did.
That.
It stayed in the back of my head. I thought, does that mean then that because we've seen him now, are we going to see him later?
Well, the only thing, not as like, take with a pinch of salt, because he is apparently in other stuff like TV, like Disney Plus TV shows, but apparently, there was talk of like possibly bringing him in, with the difference being that he starts off in his yellow suit, so just to like sort of change it up, because I don't know if although it's the same actor, I don't know if they're going to have the same like origins, and I don't know if they're going to use the Netflix stuff as like as a curve to be like, this is what we've seen, this is where we're going. So because I don't know if his Foggy and the girl, I can't think of the girl. Karen, there you go. I don't know if they're going to be like brought in because Charlie has, because it would make sense, I guess.
But it's interesting that you say this, because I had a conversation today with Sam Manicherry at work and Jake Flitcroft, who Jake, absolute madhead, went to go and watch Spider-Man on Wednesday at 11 p.m. in the IMAX, didn't get out until 2:20, was in work at the normal time on Thursday, and then went to go and watch it again on Thursday night.
Oh my
boy! Yeah, what a boy!
We were having this. Apparently, it's a legal thing with Netflix and Disney that they can have the characters, but they can't be the same characters from the same origins. So that's why, in spoiler alert for the Hawkeye series, the Kingpin in Hawkeye isn't the same Kingpin that's been before.
So it's the same Kingpin, but it's not.
It's the same actor, but they can't go, this happened before.
Right.
They can't make reference to what happened on the Netflix series.
I don't get that. I don't get why Disney keeps selling the things and then like a few
and
years
now
later,
they're like, oh, we're going to use them. But we've got
to
hands tied. I mean, it's exactly the same with Spider-Man, isn't it? Hands tied. We can't use it on our own. We need to do it.
To be fair to Disney, though, that was already the case. Like Sony had owned Spider-Man way before Disney owned Marvel. So like that, and they just kept on churning out a couple of films that we managed to spend 3 podcasts talking about.
I mean, and they ain't giving up those rights anytime soon, at all.
When Sony got it, they got offered all sorts of people. Like the deal is that they got offered like Hulk, and they got offered Iron Man, and they got offered Captain America, and they were like, oh, we just have Spider-Man. Like, we don't really want the others. Don't know what to do with them. So they took Spider-Man, and now they're like, no, I don't want to let go of Spider-Man. No,
don't blame them. The amount of money it's probably made. Even the films that haven't done that well, like critically and commercially, they're still massive, and it's probably one of the few reasons Sony is still publishing in their own right, because Disney are an absolute behemoth these days.
I mean, this one is tracking really well so far for the weekend box office.
Is this broke records?
It's definitely broke pandemic records. It was the highest for any single day on a Wednesday, I think, at Cineworld. And then I think in terms of America, they're thinking it's tracking 150 to possibly 175. But I think it's easily going to get 1 billion. And that's going to be the first film during the pandemic, post-pandemic, which is massive.
Insane.
I'm going to go through a couple of things quite quickly. So the MIT application. So basically, the kind of the fundamental sort of conversation that happens between MJ, Ned, and Peter is that they're all applying to MIT. They can't get into MIT because of the controversy surrounding Peter as Spider-Man, and they're all linked to him. Flash coming to terms with the fact that Peter Parker, or Penis Parker, is Spider-Man is quite funny. And of course he's written a book called Flashpoint about how the fact that he's Peter Parker's best friend.
I love this iteration of Flash. I love that he's not because as fun as Joe Manganiello's Flash was, that he is just this jock bully. I love that this one is just like the obnoxious rich kid that everyone kind of hates, but they keep as a friend because his parents have a pool. I love that take on Flash. We missed as well. Did you notice the Death Star getting broken again? The Lego Death Star.
Yeah.
While he's I think it was the stupid robot.
One of the last,
I was so excited to see that robot as well. The one that Tony Stark hates. That saved his life in Iron Man.
Like waving his arm at him.
Just waving at him when they come in. I was so happy to see him again. That's so stupid, but I loved it.
So eventually Peter decides that he needs to go and see Doctor Strange and seek the help of old Doctor Strange in a sequence that included Wong. And obviously, but the thing that I like about the Marvel films, it gets me every single time, is that they shoot extra footage that they only put in the trailers. So Wong saying, don't cast that spell, isn't in the film. Wong just goes, well, and then buggers off somewhere. And then basically we then cast a spell. But every single time Doctor Strange goes to cast a spell of everyone needs to forget who Peter Parker is, Peter then says, oh, wait, there's one more person who needs to know. There's one more person who needs to know. Hence it being ruined. And then rather quickly, we get the bridge sequence with Doc Ock from the trailer. Because if you remember back to our podcast, I'd read something and mentioned it at the time that apparently all of the footage in that first trailer was from the first 30 minutes. And to be honest, I think it was.
I think it could have been even less than that. I think it could have been like the first 20. It was really just.
I don't watch trailers, so.
Well, I mean, you were better than me for that then.
Well,
because I gave into the second trailer within the first day.
Only because I knew the premise of like the idea, because people have been like, oh yeah, it's like casting a spell and stuff like that. That's the these are comic called Brand New Day, and that's what that is. That basically Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange and says, "Can you cast this spell?" Because everyone knows his identity, and Doctor Strange is like, "No." So basically, Peter ends up going to.
He goes to Mephisto, doesn't he?
Mephisto, yeah. And it ends up being that he casts the spell, but then he takes his own little bit, and it's Peter and Mary Jane aren't married anymore, so they're like they're not in love. So as soon as he went to him and was kind of like, "I want this spell casting," he was saying no. I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going," which is okay, but I was sitting in the pictures and I was like, "It's fine. I don't know where this is." I didn't, because obviously it changed, but it's one of them things where if 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have seen that, I'd be like picking it apart in my brain, because that's what I do. Do you know what I mean? So
I think as well, we've been burned by the other trailer. I remember saying this when we talked about the Tom Holland ones. Homecoming especially was really kind of ruined by its trailer. Like it showed all the plot beats as they would appear. It showed a lot of the confrontation around the school, like when the prom, when they get to the prom, like that's some quite key stuff there. And there's a lot of stuff in there. Like it didn't ruin the film too much, but it kind of signposted everything going into the film. I love as well, my takeaway from that scene at the end was where Doctor Strange realizes that Peter hasn't called MIT to plead his case.
Yeah.
And he's like,
you mean you didn't give him a ring?
Yeah. So you're telling me that you didn't think to ring MIT to plead your case before coming to me to cast a spell to brainwash the entire planet?
You know what this is, Oliver? This is my job as careers lead. This is all the students coming to me going, how do I contact Oldham Sixth Form College? And I'm going, well, have you rang them? Have you emailed them?
You won't get off the goddamn things when we're in lesson and you shouldn't be on them. And now you don't know how to use the bleeding thing.
How do I talk to a college?
I tried waving, they're not waving back.
But the one theory of mine that got disproved, or the one that I read online, was the fake woman in the car. Yeah, because as soon as Flash said, "Yo, you need to find this woman," I was like, "Oh, she's not superimposed. There's not somebody else in this car." But Doc Ock's arms come up. He comes onto the thing. He says, "Hello, Peter." Classic Alfred Molina. I loved the callback of "Where's my machine? The power of the sun in the palm of my hand." Just to get everybody back where we needed to.
I love as well how cheesy. Go on, sorry. How cheesy his dialogue was, and like you could almost see Tom Holland reacting to it, like, "Why are you talking like that? What the hell?" Because he's like,
he's just shown up going, "I've been written in 2004.
Yeah,
I'm gonna move on."
I've been written in 2004 by Sam Raimi in Sam Raimi's very weird Spider-Man universe. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
These Nolan Batmans weren't around at this point. The nanotech bit I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, where he kind of didn't know where that was going to go.
Yeah. So he pulls a piece of Spider-Man's suit off, and the nanotech kind of absorbs into his hands. But then at that point, that means that Peter can control Doc Ock's arms, and that's how he manages to kind of, capture him and have him moving on and stuff.
That's really funny when he's like waving his arms and just laughing at him. Yeah. And then when he rescues the admissions officer, and she goes up to him, and it's like, that was not okay. Yeah. And he and George just burst out laughing, like, this guy with mechanical arms has just torn up an entire bridge, and you're just sassing him.
And a woman with a handbag is going, that was not okay. Yeah. That's not all right. And then, like, Goblin Bomb, Green Goblin comes through the smoke, and loved every single time Doc Ock just went, Osborn. And I was like, yeah, I can tell that these two know each other. This is good. I like this. But then he's slightly confused because obviously to him, Osborn died 2 years ago. So obviously there's a little bit of confusion there. We then cut very quickly to, again, back to the basement. He calls it something specific, doesn't he? I can't remember what he calls it. Where basically they're keeping all of these villains that have appeared. And very quickly, we get introduced to Lizard again. So Kurt Connors, who I'm slightly confused at this point as to whether or not Reese Fans was actually there doing any kind of mocap.
He is credited.
Is he credited?
When I've looked on Wikipedia, he was credited, but I did think exactly the same thing because I don't remember that him sounding like that in Amazing Spider-Man.
It's very sort of British accent, isn't he? Yeah. And I thought, I'm sure he was more American.
And when you see him in his human form, it does look very archive footage.
Well, this is it, because the same thing, I'm breaking my own rule, Holly's going to kill me. When you see Sandman in his human form and he's looking at his hand and stuff, I thought all they've done now is take that from Spider-Man 3 and put it in this film. But some people are talking about how the de-aging on Thomas Hayden Church doesn't look very good. Whereas I'm a bit like, I don't know if he's actually in it. I think they just used archive footage and just CGI'd sand everywhere.
Potentially, it could just be like the same with Lizard and with Sandman. It could essentially just be their face, like imposed onto, like so somebody's like got looking at their hands or whatever.
Like Luke in The Mandalorian.
Yes. So that kind of idea where it's like it's his face and he's reacting, but he's reacting in a different part of a different film. And they're like, can we use this? And whoever he needed to speak to whoever. Because I think it's strange that, obviously we've kind of jumped ahead, but it's strange that more so than anything else, Sandman is sand all the time.
The entire time, yeah.
That's so strange.
Much more than he was in Spider-Man 3 as well.
I mean, that adds to like when it eventually turns like human. I think that adds to it, so it is a good thing, but that's not really explained. He's just kind of still a big ball of sand that looks kind of like a man but isn't really a man.
Well, so we end up in the basement, and that's the first time that we see lizards, and that's the point in the trailer where Peter jumps, and people were trying to figure out who it was, whether it was lizard or venom or whatever it was. So then the idea is Peter is then given a kind of, it's almost like a wristband in it, where if he shoots it at one of the villains, it will then teleport them back to this basement and keep them locked away.
Yeah.
So at this point, we've got, we haven't got Goblin at this point, but we've got Doc Ock and we've got Lizard. And then they basically track down where two more are. And the one thing that I thought was quite interesting is from the trailers, I assumed that for whatever reason, Peter had a new black and gold suit. Whereas actually, he's basically just ripped off the sort of fabric of his suit.
Because I think it was inside out.
Was it inside out? Was that the idea? I think it was
inside out because you could see wires on it and stuff like that because he couldn't get the paint off it. I think
right, that makes sense. I didn't get that. That was the thing. I was a bit like, what's going on with that suit?
Yeah, I think as well the whole point was he could hold his phone to his chest because he's not got pockets. So he would and it would connect to, I can't remember what the AI in his suit's called, but it would connect to that Friday, and it'd connect to her and she'd be able to use it. Whereas, I think he just in out with his suit, and I think it was mainly just done so that we'd have another toy to sell to children.
Oh yeah, like
really.
I thought it looked much more polished in the trailer, whereas in the cinema I was like, I can see wires everywhere, so clearly this is a bit of a haphazard thing that he's had to do on his own. So then he goes into the woods, and basically we get a little bit of movement, which we then know ends up being Sandman. And there was a point here where Amy turned to me and said, "Who's the Sand guy?" Because she does not remember Spider-Man 3 at all. And
you nearly named him correctly there.
Yeah. Of all of the previous ones, that's the best one.
Well, to be fair, there's a bit of a longer story.
You kept a straight face for a long time there, Ty.
We went.
To be fair, I do like it.
We liked it. We passed it on our ranking. It's just we think it is the worst of them, but one of them has to be the worst.
Yeah,
we still like it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean,
not of all of the Spider-Man films, it's the worst of all the Spider-Man films.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get that. Yeah, but I mean, of the Maguire 3,
and the Garfield one,
and the Garfield.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and the Hollands.
I used to go on if a Spider-Man film makes me tear up or straight up cry, then it's a good film. And I teared up in 3, so I'll watch it again.
When he starts dancing.
Yeah.
What are you doing to him? This is the greatest character of all time.
Yeah. I don't mind the dance. That's the worst thing. I just think it's quite it's quite funny, and it's so out of character it's so strange that you're like, why is he doing this? And it's like, because he's got a venom inside him. I did say in the context of that film, I would have been absolutely fine with that if all of the women are reacting the way half of the women are reacting in the film, because half of the women are looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? But the other half of the women are looking at him like, oh, get him. Yeah.
Who's looking at him doing that in the street and thinking, I want some of that?
No. But yeah, no, I mean, Amy doesn't remember Spider-Man 3 because, long story short, she's diabetic, isn't she? She had a hypo halfway through. She didn't quite get. She didn't quite get to sort of dealing with it in time. And from what she remembers, she was sat in the stairwell by people who worked at the cinema feeding the jelly snakes. I got to a point where I was like, Amy's been gone a while, hasn't I? So I'm left the screen trying to find her. And by the time I'd gone back in, she was already sat down going, yeah, she doesn't remember anything about that trip and that film. So, yeah. Yeah.
That's a drastic way to get out of watching the end of the film.
Oh, no, I think that was it, to be honest. She was like, oh, this is crap in it. Let's do one.
I'd rather go through hypoglycemia than this. That's how bad this film is.
So Sandman pops up, and then the kind of strange one for Sandman is that he just looks at Peter Parker and goes, oh, I'm here to help. Because at this point Flint Marco's a good guy. Why would he not be? And then we get Electro, which I'm glad they kind of at least reference the fact that he once was blue and now that he's not. But then he stood there, stark as naked, and, they kind of go, oh, yeah, I've had a makeover, whatever. They end up putting him in the basement jail. There's then the nice conversation of Max recognizing Kurt Connors. they don't necessarily mention Flint Marko, but Flint is the one who then says, yeah, they both died because of Spider-Man, as in Octavius and Norman Osborn. The one thing that I liked, and I don't know if it's just because the games are fresh in my head that I've only realized this now, is how much they reference Feast in this film, because Feast is massive in the game, because it's where Aunt May works, it's where Peter first meets Miles, and there's a big kind of emphasis on it. And again, it kind of added a little bit more to it. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is because eventually, once we get back to Goblin, he's still hearing the voices in his head, but instead he smashes his mask and he goes to Feast.
Metaphors.
But that was so 2002 Spider-Man metaphor, weren't it? Where he's just talking to his mask in an alleyway. And he's all of a sudden got a nice sort of purple hoodie with a slightly green tartan dressing gown.
It's a good job, really, that, isn't it?
Well,
of all the things he could have grabbed, of all the things he could have been
just
given.
so you don't forget who he is.
Yeah, he's gonna need that sometime, I think. Yeah. We then get a whole bit of like Peter Parker and Doctor Strange fighting over this sort of cube that is holding the spell together. At which point we get the mirror dimension stuff again from the first Doctor Strange film, which is fine and whatever.
Yeah. If I'm nitpicking, I don't know how in any way Spider-Man overcomes Doctor Strange. I'm nitpicking,
because he goes, "Oh, you're good at geometry.
Great, shapes, so you understand the mirror dimension like that."
If only Thanos was good at geometry.
Yeah,
for that fight on Titan. But he could have pulled something together very quickly and doffed him in the face.
But like Doctor Strange, especially in the MCU as it's created now, he's easily top 5 most powerful characters. I think the only ones immediately I can think of that are more powerful are Vision, who is dead, and Wanda. And even then, like, you can make your arguments with Vision as to whether he'd be stronger. Like, Wanda's the only one who I can fairly confidently say, I'd say, she's stronger or more powerful.
I feel like everyone should be giving Wanda a wide berth after WandaVision. Don't want to wind her up.
She is. It shows at the end of WandaVision that she is more powerful, because when she's in an astral form, she's like doing the dishes and that. Doing a little thing where
like physically interacting with stuff.
Yeah, but Doctor Strange has to be asleep. So she is. I think that's their way of being like, she's a big one. Like, but Vision. Might not
Vision's a difficult one. Maybe Doctor Strange, that'd be an interesting fight, but he's dead, so we can't have it. So
well, he's grey. He's not dead.
He is grey. You are correct.
Grey, and he was grey in the comics at one point, and he had to get his humanity back. And he did do that, and then he had kids. She's already done. Anyway, go
on. So I was listening to the guys over at Unequal Sequel this morning, who have kind of pipped us to the post with this and did their little sort of review. I know the buggers, they're good though.
We're going to have a higher quality one. What can I say?
They were talking about how one of their issues that they had with the film was Aunt May's decision to sort of convince Peter that what he needs to do is cure all of these bad guys of their ailments. And the place to do that is take them all back to Happy Hogan's apartment and use dark technology to cure all these people. But actually, first of all, why would you not, if you were Flint Marko, who just wants to be a man again, he wants to be a real boy, be the person who goes, well, I'm going first.
Does he want to be a real boy?
Yeah, he wants to be a man again so he can see his daughter. I'm sure he does.
That's not a thing in the film. He wants money so that he can help with his daughter, like, because his daughter has some vague illness where she needs tubes that go into her nose.
Oh yeah,
like she needs oxygen. He just wants to be able to see. I don't think him being made of sand stops that from happening.
Anyway,
well, in this one, he's actually made of sand. So that kind of makes more sense. So he's like, I want to be a real man because I've come in here and for some reason I can turn to this massive sand monster but when I go back to normal man size, I can't quite look like a man. I can just look like a man made of sand.
Yeah, you can just get sand everywhere.
Yeah, so maybe he does just want to be.
It's coarse, it's itchy, and it gets everywhere.
Yeah, that's it.
So basically, they make the decision to cure the superhero, the villains, and they start off with Otto Octavius. And very simply, they get rid of the chip that is controlling his brain, and Otto turns once again into a lovely, lovely man. And I thought this isn't going to last, and he's going to go bad again, but he doesn't.
I quite like that though. Sticks to it, but yeah, he kicks it with the bad guys. Yeah.
Because ultimately that was the only reason. Because it wasn't that chip was fried in the first film, wasn't it? Like when the solar arc hits him, and it fuses it, and we get an Evil Dead clone scene, which is like now my favorite scene in the Raimi films. But yeah, I actually quite liked that it kind of reverted into his normal self, and it's quite touching when he's like, I forgot what silence sounds like, because he's had these AIs just constantly in his head, constantly, and
I think you mentioned he's not a bad person. I think that's the like the good thing about this version of Doc Ock is that he's not actually a bad person.
Yeah.
The way they built it was that the AI is too strong. So he's like, well, the AI wants to do this, and they're built purely to harness the power of the sun. Know what I mean?
So they're obsessed with it, yeah.
So that's what they're built to do. So if you've got these what would be voices being like, hey, do this because this is what we want to do, and it's four of them, and they're overpowering your thoughts, then
like I forgot to say this in the initial podcast, but both the Maguire and the Garfield Spider-Man films have the overriding message, especially when it comes to the villains, of what has science done? Like that's the whole message behind the villains. You know, Norman Osborn goes insane because he's pushed himself too far with his super serum formula. Doc Ock has obviously had his, brain fused to a megalomaniacal set of AIs. Sandman gets turned into a walking ball of quartz by a collider experiment.
Because somebody thought there was a pigeon in there.
It's a bird. It'll just fly away. Yeah, it's like, there's been a mass increase, but I don't know exactly how much, because if I knew exactly how much, I'd know it wasn't a bird, because no bird weighs nearly 100 kilograms, because Thomas Hayden Church is 6 foot odd of pure man muscle, not a pigeon.
That's it. Do you know what though? I have noticed about the Tobey Maguire films. Every single bad guy repents at the end. Every single one of them is like, I am so bad, and then in that long before they die, they're all like, actually, I am good. Yeah. Actually,
Goblin doesn't.
He does, because he's like,
he tries to kill Peter Parker. The only reason he dies is because the glider hits him in the crotch.
In the last seconds, when he's like, Peter, don't tell Harry. Like, he's like,
that's not. I'm sorry. No, I'm not having that.
I'm
that's
clipping
not
that. Greg, that's Greg. That's Ty's audition reel.
That's not repentance.
Of course it is, because he's like, oh my God, like I'm sorry. Don't let me son know that like I'm this monster. Do you know what I mean? That's like.
I think that's quite cowardly. I think that's more.
Of course it is. He's a bad guy.
I tell you what though, it's funny though, isn't it, when he just goes, "Don't tell Harry. Don't
tell Harry." Yeah. And just stares down the camera still.
But yeah.
Oops! Don't tell Harry. So we basically get kind of different cures linked to each character. So Lizards is some kind of like smoke cloud formula thing. There's a serum for Green Goblin. There's something else for Electro and all that kind of stuff. But naturally,
you got the vibe from Electro very early on that he's like, well, I'm feeling fine. I don't really want to be cured. As it were. I don't feel insane or megalomaniacal. I like the power here. And I like as well, they use that to explain why his color palette changes, because we're in a different universe with different electricity. And that's why he's all yellow in this one.
Yes.
I loved that. That was really clever.
I missed that.
Well, I was wondering how they were going to do that, because I was like, he was all blue, and he was like, it was not completely different, obviously, but the power was different. And I was like, oh, how are they, like, I just didn't get it. Like, I was like, how are they going to explain that? And when he's like, yeah, it feels different and it's nice.
He's like, he's really egging up how good the energy feels in this universe, and that he wants to stay.
So basically, he ends up taking a version of the arc reactor that we usually see from Tony Stark and stuff. And obviously, some of them don't want to get cured. Goblin makes it quite known that he doesn't want to be cured. Mm-hmm. There's a whole kind of kickoff. And
there's
then
a good Spidey sense scene there as well. I've not seen much Spidey sense from Tom Holland, but that was really tense there. You were wondering what the hell was going on.
The tingle. I was waiting.
And then he just shoots Gobbo's hand, and we see the one thing I said I wanted in Spider-Man 1, Adam. Can you remember what I wanted in Spider-Man 1?
Was it not like the classic Hood Goblin, or was it just Goblin taking over?
Willem Dafoe's Goblin face on show. Yeah. Because I said, what is the point of casting Willem Dafoe, who, as much as I respect the man, has a goblin face, if you are then not going to show his goblin face?
Don't give him a helmet. He's got a pointy chin.
Do not give him that, because they smash the helmet from the get-go, and you see all of his big smiles and all his over-the-top eye movements, and it is amazing. And we get to see Willem Dafoe's goblin face on full view, and it is glorious. Love it. The one thing I wanted from him in this film, and I got it, and he's like, yes.
Because I'll admit, up to this point, I was a bit like, they're doing a lot of setup here. I think if I stand back from the film, I kind of go, the first hour is a lot of setup, is a lot of let's get to the point, and the second hour is where it all really kicks off. And we're about to get into the second hour here.
Where it goes down.
Oh my God. So Goblin attacks and basically spine busters Peter Parker through about four different floors of an apartment.
I remember the bit where Peter jumps up and wraps his legs around Goblin's head, and he's just punching him repeatedly in the face. And he just cuts to a shot of Goblin holding him and doing his Goblin face and laughing maniacally. And I felt genuinely uncomfortable at that point. I was like, oh my God,
it felt quite dark. That was the point where I thought that felt a bit dark.
Because he's like punching him, and like a couple of things that are dark are this Peter Parker just isn't strong enough to cope with Goblin. Mm-hmm. But it's also the reminder as well that Spider-Man 1 doesn't really have a plot in terms of, we got to save the world or anything. Goblin in that is quite like his whole deal in that film is just, I'm going to mess with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I've not got a grand plan. I'm not doing anything. Like, I am just going to mess with Spider-Man.
Enjoy it. Yeah, the first Tobey Maguire film is very like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's like Tom Holland is not the neighborhood Spider-Man. Like, bitch, you've been to space. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't. It's not like Tobey Maguire's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna swing around these 6 streets that around me house, and see what crime I get into, and that's it. Like, it's so like small and like close knit that you kind of, when you look at Tom Holland, it's like, Jesus Christ, he's everywhere. He's fighting aliens and that. Like,
if you nitpick it as well, like, this is a kid who has held his own, like, not on his own, but he has held his own against someone as strong as Thanos, and then he's not holding his own against Green Goblin all that well, and it is a bit like, but you have to really nitpick to get into that, because I actually found that quite scary, the fact that you would expect this Spider-Man to be able to hold his own really well, but Goblin's just like, no. Straight in. And that entire fight sequence as they go down into the lobby, it was stunning. I loved it.
Because they basically destroy a building. And then at that point, Goblin appears on his glider again. He shoots the glider in. It hits Aunt May. And then he throws a Goblin bomb in, which then explodes and Peter tries to kind of deflect it. And then we get a scene where Peter and Aunt May stand up and they're talking. And we get the line in which I thought we weren't going to get in these films, where Aunt May turns to Peter and says, with great power comes great responsibility. And then at that point, Aunt May succumbs to her injuries and dies. And at that point, I welled up. I think Amy welled up. I wasn't expecting it. Buddy Happy Hogan turns up again in his car. And it's like, you just need to move on.
Somehow doesn't get shot by the SWAT team.
Yeah. Peter has to flee. He can't stay there because they shoot him in the shoulder from what he looks like.
And can we take a minute as well to appreciate how well Tom Holland acts in that scene where he's telling Aunt May she's gonna be okay.
I think across the board, this is one of the best acted Spider-Man films we've ever had. Because a scene that we'll talk about in a little bit, Zendaya towards the end of this film, Christ almighty. Like,
oh my God.
Honestly. So one thing that had been set up as well, so I'm kind of shifting from Aunt May's death for a second, is Ned drops a little thing about how his grandma calls him magic. And I thought, hang on a minute, something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And they steal a ring from Doctor Strange, and all of a sudden Ned begins to sort of get some sparks coming out of his hands. And we're basically in Ned's house with his grandparents, and Zendaya's there. And they say that they need to talk to Spider-Man. And they go, right,
I wish we knew where Peter was. Yeah.
We've figured out that Ned can basically make portals a la Doctor Strange using this ring that he's got on.
You've shifted very quickly from a key character dying here.
Do you want? Well, if you want to talk more about it, you talk.
No. I think it was just like, yeah.
I think it was because in my head I'm going, we're going to talk more when we get to the rooftop.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. That's fine. Okay.
I feel like the film does that. I feel like the film goes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes, she's just died, but we need to do something first
before we get a move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So he opens the portal.
I apologize.
It's all right. He opens the portal, and they basically go, we need to talk to Spider-Man. And we see through a portal, a very far distance, Spider-Man. And then at that point, he walks ever so closely to the portal and go on.
What point did you realize?
I didn't. It was very close. This is the thing. Like, he's so far away that I was just like, oh, he's in an alleyway and he just doesn't know what he's doing with himself. And then there's a point where he begins to run and he gets very, very close. And at that point, my cinema screen lost their minds. It was
mine were quite quiet, but yeah.
Like,
we got claps and everything. We got
claps,
like proper
cheering.
Claps. Yeah.
It was insane because at this point, people, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man walks through the portals. And not only do you then get the claps and the cheers of recognizing the suit, when he takes his mask off, it happens all over again. Everyone's absolutely lost their heads. Now, I've said this, and Ty is going to get this reference, I think, more than Ollie is, right? This is the film equivalent to CM Punk returning to wrestling. Because what I mean by that is CM Punk returned to wrestling at AEW Rampage in Chicago. It was an AEW show. It was in Chicago. They were doing a big arena than they ever had done. It was the first Rampage. There were rumors rife everywhere. And not once did the company go, somebody might be appearing on this show.
Yeah.
But everyone just assumed that it was going to happen, right?
Like the worst kept secret.
Yeah.
That everyone knew, but no one knew.
Everybody knew that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in this film, but at the same time, we were all like, hang on a minute, if you tell me that, that's a spoiler. Like, I don't want to know that. And
you're worried it was going to be like a post-credit scene at most, weren't you? Yeah.
So it was like, I feel like they're going to be in it. We're assuming they're going to be in it. I'd love it for them to be in it. And then, boom, everyone's in it. Like,
I knew something was off with the wave. So there's the point, you can see him in the distance. He kind of looks through the portal like that, and then he just kind of waves awkwardly. I was like, that ain't Tom Holland. I don't know who it is. It's one of the other two, but it ain't Tom Holland. And at that point, I was like, oh my God. And then as he gets closer, you see that amazing Spider-Man suit. And then you get the whole...
I got onto it quite early, only because this is going to like super nerdy, but the way Andrew Garfield moves as Spider-Man is not the same as how Tom Holland does, or Tobey Maguire does. He moves very like...
He's a bit taller, isn't he?
Yeah, you can tell it's him. He's a bit more like gangly and a bit more like a bit wobbly, and it's weird. But I swear to God, if they all had the same suit on and we're all the same size, I could pick him out of a crowd. I really, honest to God, like as soon as I seen him, I was just like, yeah, that's Andrew Garfield. Like it was just so clear to me. And then obviously when he took his thing off and everyone seen him and everyone went nuts, and it was a nice.
I clapped as well at that point. I just couldn't help myself when he. I think it got to the point where he actually took his mask off, where I clapped more.
Yeah.
My mate chose this time to go to the toilet. Like he went to the toilet before. I think as Peter was like looking at Aunt May, and then he was walking past the screen and up the stairs as Andrew Garfield has stood there talking to Ned and Zendaya.
I mean,
I don't know why I'm calling Jacob Battalion Ned and Zendaya's, and you know what I mean. And I just said to him, I went, "You went to the toilet at the wrong time," and he went, "Why? What's happened?" And I was like, "Look at the screen." Like,
I mean, how old is he? How old is your mate?
He's 31. He's
31, and he can't hold his bladder.
Like, I mean, I went to the toilet in the first hour just because I feel like if I need to go, I'm going to go now because I'm not missing anything here.
Okay,
I went twice at the beginning of the film because I knew that could happen to me, and I did not want to miss any of this.
I needed the toilet, and I was like, I'm a grown man, I can hold my bladder. Like, I would rather wet myself than miss something. But I know I'm not going to wet myself because I'm a grown man. Like, I'm okay. Like, I was just like, yeah, I need the toilet. I am not going to the toilet. Like, that was
I was just like, but I like the whole interaction that Ned and Ned's grandma have with him, where it's like, we don't believe that you're Spider-Man. You know, stick to the roof, crawl on the ceiling. We don't believe you. Or can you go get that cobweb?
This is enough. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not.
And then they do it again. And then at that point, we get Tobey Maguire. And it was such a nice and subtle way for him to come in, because he literally was just stood there and just stepped through the portal, and he was like, "Oh,
I love that." He was like,
"Hi, you okay?
I'm just gonna
step through this. Oh, it's gone now."
Yeah,
it was so kind of like mild mannered, and he was like, "Oh, this is all the Spider-Man. This is all the Peter Parker," you know. The one thing that did start running through my head was, are they now going to go, all right, clearly this isn't working by us saying that we need to talk to Peter Parker. So let's say that we need to talk to Spider-Man. And I was like, oh, does that mean we're then going to get Miles Morales? That doesn't happen. Okay. No. That was my big wish. That wasn't going to happen. But we basically then from that point, they're all together. They're all introduced. And they say, we need to find him. We don't know where he is. And Tobey Maguire basically says, is there somewhere where he goes to clear his head? For me, it was the top of the Chrysler building. And Andrew Garfield says, Empire State Building. They go, oh, it was a good view. And then they go to the rooftop of the school, where we find Tom Holland absolutely crushed and devastated. And at this point, Amy turned to me and she went, I just want to give him a hug. Because as I've said this, and the reason why he is my favorite Spider-Man is he has the youth correct. He is the perfect youth casting for this role. And I believe in him being that young and that naive. So they turn up and they're all talking. And we basically get to a point where Peter says, Aunt May said something to me. She said, with great power. And Toby finishes it and says, with great responsibility. And all the Spider-Men at that point are welling up. And they're all going, that's the one thing that got me though, Ollie, right? And we spoke about this.
Yeah. Is Andrew Garfield says, yeah, he said it to me too. And I'm like, no, he didn't.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He said something very, very different to you.
Then you have a moral obligation to do those things roundabout way. Like, he didn't actually say great power.
He didn't say those words.
My takeaway from that though, do you remember the bit where Peter was talking about he stopped pulling his punches?
Yeah.
And he got bitter. And I was like, oh.
So dark.
Like, this is the thing that when you said to me about coming on here, I was like, this is the one thing that I would like to mention, that as much as it's nice to see them all back and doing the thing and all that stuff, because of what I suppose a flop second film for Amazing Spider-Man, which made $700 million, by the way, and that's still a flop. But anyway, we were robbed of that film. Like, that synopsis for the third film of him dealing with the grief and the fact that he blames himself and the fact that he's just so enraged and he can't get past it. And even later on when he's like, I haven't got time for Peter Parker stuff, that film would have been amazing, literally and figuratively, obviously. But because they were like, no, we're not making a third one. If that was the third one, that would have been fantastic.
But in the same way, would it have been as good as it is in our heads right now?
Maybe not, but the idea of him like not knowing what to do with himself, but still having, like I said earlier on, still having this moral obligation to his dead uncle to be like, I have to do this, I have to go out, all these things. And then to be like grief stricken and not know how to deal with it and be like, you are bad guys and you're doing bad guy things, and my missus is not here and I can't deal with that, is a film I'd like to see. I'll be honest.
I would love to see it. I know what you mean, but at the same time, like, it has now allowed, because Adam said it as well. If that series had gone on to be successful, we probably wouldn't have Tom Holland as Peter Parker, and we wouldn't have the opportunity. And we wouldn't have the opportunity for this multiverse. And he says that to you, and he brings up Gwen dying beautifully on that rooftop scene again, and you get to. I know what you mean about wanting to see the film, but at the same time, you can imagine that. And I think Andrew Garfield really sells everything you've just described really well in a couple of scenes of dialogue. I think Andrew like all of them, but Andrew Garfield really, for me,
the acting from Andrew Garfield, like in
Andrew Garfield's my favorite Spider-Man.
And mine, he absolutely cemented it for me in this film. He was unbelievable. Like, really, he was anyway. Like, place for me.
I have read millions and millions of comics, and I continue to read millions of comics. And I say all the time, and I say about like Spider-Man making me cry and all stuff like that. Spider-Man 121, when Gwen dies, or 121 and 122, when Gwen dies, is the only comic book that every time I read, I get upset, and it like proper gets me. And it's like from like the 70s, like the drawing isn't even that good. It's not like, it's just something about it that is like, oh my God. And I've only seen Amazing Spider-Man 2 once, because when it happened in the pictures, I was like a proper baby. Like, I was like, and
I was a mess. And that's the only death in the Spider-Man films that's really, like, Adam, I agreed with Adam when we did it in the podcast. Far and away the most impactful death in any Spider-Man film.
The most important, the most emotional. Like, and we spoke about this a lot in the podcast. Like, Andrew and Emma's relationship in that film, it just shines through to the point where Peter and Gwen are the most believable. Peter and MJ, Peter and whatever. Like, I think actually this one comes close.
You do start to get it in this film, especially.
This one comes close, because I tell you what, I believed it every second of the way.
This is because it was Mark Webb who did the Amazing Spider-Mans, weren't it?
Yeah.
So Mark Webb shot like some of the film and did this thing, and then when Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone got together, there were scenes where he was like, do me a favor, like, just do these again, like, but do them now, like a few months later. And they got reshot when they were together, and it was all fresh and new, and it was like this lovely little relationship that they like built, and they like couldn't keep hands off each other and all stuff like that. So that's why I chose to. And I think more so than anything, this film with Tom Holland and Zendaya being together, their relationship,
you can tell, can't you?
Different. Yeah, it just feels different.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the beauty of kind of them being together, is that it's created this like.
Yeah, because I like MJ a lot more in this film as well, because I did think in Far From Home, she had a weird like character shift. Like, she was a good compromise in this film of the two characters she seemed to play in the previous two. Because in the first one, she was this kind of apathetic kind of like outsider, and then she just a bit awkward and gawky in the second one. And like, I don't think that's Zendaya's fault at all. I think it's just she's been written almost completely differently, and they did quite well in this one to marry the pair of them. But yeah, I think you're definitely right about the idea of them being in a relationship in real life is just real, because and you only have to look at Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire to see how stilted that is. Like,
yeah, that's it.
I mean, because again, just there was a little bit of a throwaway line where Andrew Garfield Spider-Man says, "Oh, I lost Gwen," and one of them said, "Oh, Gwen," and he went, "Oh, she was my MJ," and
That
like
was
that's
so
enough to
sweet.
kind of go like, "Oh my god, yeah."
That was so sweet.
After this, we get quite a fun scene in the lab where they're all working together, and there's a couple of lines here and there that are quite funny about the different Spider-Men, and the nice interaction for me was Toby and Andrew talking about how how to deal with being Spider-Man. And him and MJ just make it work, but sometimes they wonder whether or not a relationship is possible for a guy like them and with what they're doing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of kind of almost like sacrificial foreshadowing that's going on here. Because again, before this, there's a lot of like Tom Holland's Peter grabbing MJ's hand and stuff like that made me think in the old Chekhov's gun style of like going, I think she's gonna die in this. I think
there was one thing that MJ said in this where I was like, oh, she's dead. There was one line in particular. It's like, I'm always gonna be here. Nope, she's gone.
Like
Georgia said as well, sorry, the three of them, it was George who said this, and I massively agree. She really liked the dynamic between the three of them as well, not just the chemistry, like the way they formed a team, the way that Toby slots into this kind of
father figure almost.
Fatherly figure who's been around the block, he knows it, and he's just quite calm. And Andrew, who's got all these crippling self-doubt and everything in there, and then Tom, who is just the kid, who is a bit of an angsty teenager.
I think that's the thing. That's the thing about Andrew Garfield in this film is kind of like you sort of get the feeling that like he really needed this. Like in a weird sort of way, like he'd completely lost his way as Spider-Man, and this kind of brought him back into focus in the strangest way that when he goes back to his universe, this is how he fixes it. This is how he sort of realizes, like, okay, actually, I am amazing because this other Spider-Man told me. But like, you can tell he's got to this point where he's like, I don't know what to do, and then like even when they're together, and he's like, I love you. Like, I love you guys. Like, and the two of them are like, okay. So, because they've kind of got something, but he hasn't got anything. He's just got this Spider-Man, and he doesn't particularly like Spider-Man all that much, to be honest. So he's kind of like, he really needed something to kind of ground him. Yeah. And this massive multiverse fight was the thing that did it in the strangest way. So, I really like
we get the set piece on the Statue of Liberty, which they've done a whole thing where they've given the Statue of Liberty Captain America's shield, and I thought that was a bit weird.
It's a bit weird, but he does give us a great little scene at the end, towards the end of the whole thing.
I think that's the kind of point. That's the only reason why it's there, isn't it?
Chekhov's shield, if you will.
Yeah, I love the whole bit of like Toby and Peter going again. Call back to Tobey Maguire's back injury. Oh, hang on a minute, I need my back cracking. I
actually saw on Twitter. Someone shared the only Spider-Man spoiler I saw was one that just said Spider-Man spoiler out of context, and it was someone doing that crack your back maneuver, like a picture of someone doing that crack your back maneuver, and then I saw it on the cinema. I was like, I love it. And they're having a conversation as well about, so like, you shoot your own webs, they just come out, and then like, I love that. And it's like, oh, we don't want to be like prying and disrespectful. We just, we can't do that. So, we got to make our own web shit. And they were just all so perfectly awkward and nerdy, and just in their own way, they were all so perfectly Peter Parker about it. That's what I loved about that bit just before everything goes down, like as they're talking about it. Just
they were absolutely amazed that Tobey Maguire has organic web shooters, whereas Andrew Garfield, as he says, I have to make mine in a lab, and it's it's a hassle. It's very time consuming.
Does it come out of anywhere else?
I think more even when like Tobey Maguire's reaction, and he's like, that does sound like a hassle. Like, that's unfortunate for you.
Like, is that what me? I won't be doing that.
I wouldn't be doing that. Like, that sounds like a hassle to me. Like, geez, I never really thought about it. Like, I breathe. I don't think of a breathing. It just happens. Just comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just...
we end up basically. Go on.
Like, before going into this as well, I do remember thinking Sandman's turn to being a bad guy again seemed a bit out of nowhere, because out of all of the ones that were there, he seemed the most like up for just
on the
apart,
fence, and yeah.
Not even just on the fence. He was like, no, I'm willing to go with him, and then right out of nowhere, he's like, I don't trust Peter Parker anymore. I was like,
it's like, you guys are going, so I'll go too. Like,
yeah, okay,
so easily led. That's it.
Yeah.
We end up getting basically a big fight on the Empire State Building, where they're trying to administer these cures that they've created for each different villain. And some of them end up with it, some of them, it takes a little bit more. Mary Jane and Ned end up getting involved through the portals again. And so a couple of things before the next big applause that happened in my cinema. So when Electro gets cured and he kind of drops down and Andrew Garfield's got his mask off, and Electro says, "Oh, you're from Queens and you're helping people. I thought you'd be black." And he goes, No, I'm not black. And he goes, "Oh, so you mean to tell me there's no black Spider-Man?" "No, well, not in this universe." That was, that was nice.
That was nice. I
think as well that like when Toby did that, when Andrew Garfield and like that and Jamie Foxx, they're like dynamic in the first film. That kind of like got it back. Like like or in the second film, I should say, that's like, it was a nice little thing where it was like, and then even when he was like, "I thought you'd be black," and he was like, "Oh, sorry," like, like I disappointed you. Like, oh my god!
Like before, when he's reminiscing about it, it's like, it's so weird. Max is just the sweetest guy. I don't know what happened. Like I really like that.
Yeah.
Nice. So massive applause in my screen, emotional again, and even had me going, "Oh, Andrew," was Andrew Garfield finally getting his redemption for Gwen Stacy.
Oh my god! Yes,
MJ falls.
Cried at that.
Tom Holland doesn't quite get her, but Andrew Garfield swoops down, gets her, and he can't go on.
Everyone was talking, even including me and you, about the glove being different.
Yeah, but it wasn't, was it?
It wasn't. So was it different on the trailer?
It must have been. That must have been another thing to kind of throw us.
Go on. Sorry.
So he catches her, he cradles her in his arms, and he kind of looks at her and he tears up. And I mean, everyone was just like, "Oh, he's finally done it. He's got his redemption for the way that he lost Gwen." It was such a nice thing to put in. Yeah. I can't.
I cried a lot.
I did openly.
Yeah. Like genuine tears and a little.
Like, but this is the difference. Like, because obviously, the two of you will probably agree with this. Like, we've followed them all the way through. Like, Amy has come to it because obviously we're watching the MCU together, and if there's a new MCU film, she has to come with me because she's seen them all and all that kind of stuff. She found the Tom Holland stuff the most emotional stuff in this. She found the Aunt May thing the most emotional thing. For me, it was the callbacks to the other stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas easily. I teared up at the Andrew Garfield bit saving MJ. And she kind of said, like, well, why? When the film had finished and we were waiting for the post-credits thing, she said, well, why was that a big thing? And I said, because do you not remember how Gwen died in Amazing Spider-Man 2? And she was like, oh, yeah, now I do. Now I get, but it was very fresh for me,
I think the whole, like, Gwen thing is strangely a big thing in our house. So, like, Rach knew, like, that Gwen, that thing happening to Gwen was like, as soon as he did that and as soon as he was like, no, and jumped, it was like, oh, like, and that was at the point when Rachel was like, oh my God, like, he's gonna, and I think it was more to do with, because I'd talked about, like, being so upset about Gwen and all stuff like that. Like, it's an interesting thing to sort of get that moment. And as you say, Amy wasn't, not that she wasn't invested, but they must have known that a certain portion of the audience wouldn't have been like, oh, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal? Do you know what I mean?
They didn't make a huge deal out of it so that people were confused, but at the same time, they put just enough kind of focus on it so that us who were waiting for it, kind of.
Got it,
yeah. Goblin then reappears. And kind of like final boss Green Goblin, that final fight, like
that
Tom
is
Holland,
one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. I felt every single punch. And I loved as well, because it reminded me of Goblin's entire deal of I love that it's not even his Peter Parker and he just wants to mess with him.
Yeah.
Like when Peter gives him the line, "No, I just wanted to kill you myself before you went." And the reply being, "Attaboy." Just yes. Oh my God. And every single punch just being like, ugh.
Every single punch, right? And then to the point where he picks up the glider and he goes to just kill Norman. And then Tobey Maguire gets in the way and he's holding it. And that bit where they're both just looking at each other, like that's dialogue without speaking. That I could feel everything that they were saying to each other at that point.
I think that's one of them things as well, where I think Tobey Maguire sold it, because I think there was sort of a point where they were looking at each other and you could see Tobey Maguire was struggling. And I think that added to it, in the sense that he was like, stop. It wasn't like he's still forcing the thing into like down, and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's holding it like, oh my God, like
he really wants to do
like,
this
seriously, like, and it takes. I think that it's nice that it took a little bit too long for him to like stop pushing. Like it was one of them things that he's like, is he act like that? It probably was only a couple of seconds, but to do it for 1, 2, 3 seconds longer than you would think they'd do it for added so much more to it, because it was like, I don't think he's going to stop doing this, seriously, like, and they were like looking at each other. I think that like made it for me, but it was like, wow, he really.
One thing that I really like is that they cure Goblin, you know, so that it goes back to Norman, and Norman not really realizing that this sort of other half of him is taken over. The bit that I like is that what they don't do is they then don't have Tom Holland go over to him and sort of go, "It's okay, Norman, we've fixed you." Yeah. He's still holding that resentment. He's still holding that bitterness, as we would. You know, you're looking at somebody who a minute ago you were almost going to kill because of what he'd done and what he'd said and all that
you
kind of stuff.
You wouldn't get over that straight away.
You wouldn't, no, not at all. And it would be difficult for you to then go, "I'm struggling to forgive you for this. I know it wasn't you mentally, but it's going to take time." I will say,
given what they did so well with the rest of the interactions, you know, like Andrew with Max, and I don't think he gets one with Dr. Connors, but like Toby gets a brief interaction with Flint, and his interaction with Doc Ock is just the sweetest thing. Like Doc Ock saying to him, like, "How are you, dear boy?" And they're like, it's like proper father and son. And like, one of my favorite bits of the first Spider-Man film is that relationship between Peter and Norman. It is so genuinely, when it's Norman and not Gobbo, it's genuinely sweet. It is a surrogate. He is a surrogate father to him, and like, maybe they just wanted the dramatic pathos, because I thought Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was going to die, because obviously,
I said that
I thought they were going to kill him off, but he obviously stays alive until whatever we talk about later. But I am a bit sad that they didn't get a bit of an interaction, even if it was like as he was lying there. Yeah. Even if it had been that line of, "Oh, it's all right, it's not the first time I've been stabbed." If he said that, if he'd said that to a repentant Norman who's like over him, trying to cradle him, trying to make him feel a bit better, like that would have been quite funny, and it also would have like spoken to their relationship. And it's like, but I am a bit disappointed we didn't get that. But
there's a point, like I thought it would have been. See, there's some things that I thought were slightly missing. There's stuff like that where you don't really get that interaction, and like it would have been nice to see Norman Osborn mention Harry to Peter, to be like, "How's Harry?" and Peter just being like, "Shit." You know what I mean? So there's that, and then I thought Tobey Maguire and the like J. Jonah Jameson, like they're not having any scene together, like even the littlest of thing, to be like, I don't know what it was, but it would be nice to just, even if J. Jonah Jameson would have seen like his Spider-Man suit swing by and be like, "Hang on a minute." Do you know what I mean?
That guy.
If J. Jonah had been at the scene and seen 3 Spider-Men all swinging around
like that, where it's like
rain over the wall, that would have been hilarious.
Just a little thing, like a little nod to be like they're from the same thing. That would have been nice. You know what I
mean? The kind of emotional crux of the film ends up being that the basically the multiverse begins to break, And at that point, I thought we were going to then see more people. Part of me was like, I don't think this is over. We're still going to get more here.
Well, did you see like the shadows in the purple?
Yeah, so I recognized Rhino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I seen what looked like Scorpion.
Someone spotted Kraven the Hunter.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
As one of them. Now, I was expecting Venom at some point here, and we'll get to the mid credits when we get to them. But spoilers, basically, what happens is kind of not that anything else has been fine.
Yeah.
Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange and says, "You need to do the spell, but you need to do the spell where everybody forgets about Peter Parker, because this will fix everything, and we need to go back to that point." And he says, that means MJ is going to forget you. That means Ned's going to forget you. And he goes, I know. So as he's doing the spell, he goes and he tells Ned and he tells MJ what's happening. And again, absolutely perfect acting from Zendaya at this point, because she's going, no, I don't want to.
There is the bit at the before that when he's like, to the three of them have the little moment.
Yeah, of course.
Where he squeeze and goes to hug the two
and
of them.
It's
so good.
Like, and I think that scene with them being like talking and the kind of like saying the little pieces, and then Tom Holland not really knowing what to say, and this Spider-Man being a bit like that, and then
it's
for Tobey Maguire, Tobey Maguire just to be like, that's what we do. Totally cements what I've said at the start of the thing. It's like, it's just what we do. Like that's just what Spider-Man does.
Yeah,
you don't need to say it. We all know it. Like it's just that's it. Like that is Spider-Man. We just do what needs to be done, and whatever the cost or whatever it may be, we'll sort that out afterwards. But this thing needs to be stopped, and that's what we do. Like that's it. So and that was just like, yeah, man, that right there. That's why he's in the film.
So that this is for me. I was welling up at that point. I was welling up at the Zendaya bit, and I thought, how is this even going to move forward? How is this even going to be a thing? And then Amy absolutely sobbed when she realized that he was going to the coffee shop to sort of say to her, "Oh, hi, I'm Peter Parker." Now, the one thing I'm glad the film didn't do, which I thought it was going to do, is when Peter Parker steps in and Ned is behind him, I was expecting them to go, "Oh, Ned's my boyfriend."
Yeah, I was expecting that. I was really ready for that.
I'm so glad it didn't. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
But it's a really difficult scene where we now know that they have no idea who he is, and he's trying and he wants to say something, but he can't say something. And then he goes to May's grave, and Happy turns up at May's grave, and Happy doesn't know who he is. And they just say that they both knew her through Spider-Man. And it's basically just completely reset everything. And the final thing that we get in that film is Spider-Man swinging through New York City at Christmas wearing a new fashioned blue and red suit, a sort of classic Spider-Man suit.
Shiny.
Shiny.
Which to me begins to wonder where we go next. Because is it now that, are we going to go classic Spider-Man? Are we going to go a bit more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and get your villains like, your Rhinos, maybe do we get Kingpin in?
I think
do we get, Black Cat maybe?
Slightly going back, I think that the coffee shop scene that felt to me like that was Tom Holland's, like, that was the same kind of scene, and his scene of the, like, how Spider-Man works and stuff like that, when Tobey Maguire at the funeral, at the end of the first one, at Norman's funeral, when he's like talking to MJ and he's like, I'll be here for you, but I'm your friend. And that was his moment where he was like, I can have everything I want, or I can be Spider-Man. I can't be both. And I think that, looking at the parallels of them, that's the same thing, where it's like he could have went in and said, right, okay, I'm going to tell you I love you, and I'm going to do this, and this is who I am.
Which none of it would have worked either, because you imagine that happening, you'd be like, okay, crazy guy.
But I think that's the thing where it's like, where Kirsten Dunst in the first film is like, when I was on the top of that thing and I was like, thought I was going to die. The last person I thought of was you. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was kind of like, okay, I put her in that danger, so I can't be like with her because she'll always be in that danger. And Tom Holland does exactly the same thing when he sees the plaster on MJ's head, and he's like, okay, this is the decision I make.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the parallels of them scenes and the parallels of them Spider-Mans kind of like ring true, I think. And it's
Georgia was fuming with him at that point though. Because Georgia was like, no. Well, MJ specifically said, oh, by the way, nitpick, she's not called Mary Jane in this. I forgot. She's
Michelle Jones.
Michelle Jones, so she is MJ. But MJ specifically said, you come and find me and you make me remember.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't do that. And it's like, no, she told you. She told you what to do. Like, you're not making this decision for her. She's her own independent woman. Like, how dare you?
As with Spider-Man of the past, they can't keep secrets. They can't keep promises. You know, the whole thing with Andrew Garfield promising Gwen's dad that he was going to stay away.
And I hated, I remember that winding me up as well. And I remember we talked about it, all these promises they made in the past of winding me up. I will always be your friend. Shut up. Why have we got to go through another film of you pining after MJ when we could see? I mean, we actually get it with these guys, so it is different. But like in the Maguire ones, I remember it really annoying me that it's like we've got to wait until Spider-Man 3 to see the trials and tribulations of him juggling being a superhero with maintaining a relationship.
Yeah.
And we have seen that with this Tom Holland, so I excuse it a bit more, but it is still that I'm going to
I'll be honest.
This decision.
I have a weekly podcast that I can't juggle with a relationship, for God's sake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's Spider-Man. I can't even juggle doing this once a week. Okay,
but especially at the beginning, like towards the beginning where they're like starting the quest and like he goes and does the spell and MJ literally says to him, it's like, no, I'm not angry with you, but like, you know, next time you want to do something like this for us, maybe just keep us in the loop because we're here to back you up ultimately.
I think like he could have got a pen and just wrote like on a t-shirt or something, or like a little piece of his suit.
Look for Peter Parker.
Yeah. Something like there's a little note for
and
you.
like to nitpick a bit more as well, like how does he get a flat? Because if everyone's forgotten who he is, surely he doesn't have like a social security number.
Well, do you know what? Honest to God, I was like, I thought when he walked into that they were going to mention his name, and I was convinced he was going to be like like an alias. And I was like, I wonder if he'll be like Ben Reilly, like, or something, like someone who we know is in Spider-Man, because obviously Ben Reilly's his clone, but like, I don't think Miguel would work, I suppose, because that's not, it doesn't look like Miguel.
No, yeah, he doesn't.
But like, I thought they might use like a different Spider-Man and his name as like, because he's not Peter Parker, I suppose.
Yeah.
So he could be anyone.
Would have been a nice Easter egg, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look like a little tiny thing just to be like, oh yeah, this is who I'm going to go as type thing. Yeah. But yeah, they never did. And they never got the guy in who shouts rent. Gutted about that. Rent?
If promises were cookies, my daughter would be fed.
Yeah. I was a bit gutted they didn't get that guy in, I'll be honest. But, you know, that's just me.
He was the final boss, just a pin.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we then move into the post-credit sequences. So the first one, mid-credits, is Venom. So we see Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy, sat at a bar drinking, being served by the one and only Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. And if you've not seen Ted Lasso, you need to get off your backsides and go and watch Ted Lasso. And basically, he's trying to understand everything that's happened with the Avengers, but then he gets sucked away back to his own dimension, but leaves a little bit of Venom behind. And to me, I was a bit like, okay, so basically what they've done is they've said, here's Venom in the MCU. He's going to be in it for 2 mid-credit sequences. He's going to leave a bit of Venom behind so the MCU can have their own Venom.
But how did the magic not send
I don't know.
Venom back?
I don't know. I was a bit...
Well,
Amy basically looked at it and she went, oh, so it meant nothing then. And I was like,
Well, if they go with what Venom is, I suppose, Venom and all of the Venoms in the comics have got a they all share like a single. They all know what the other one's doing.
It was like a hive mind thing, weren't it?
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. So essentially, if there's a bit of venom left in this universe, venom can go back, or not venom, but like the symbiote can go and get the rest of them because he knows where he is. How he gets there, that's
it's like how that breaks multiverse magic lore is like how he can leave a bit of himself.
So because it's like an off-world thing, I don't know, but because they've got, as you say, like a hive situation where they're gonna like suck it back and bring it out, and I don't know, like it's just, but it's interesting. You know what I mean? Even like little things where the Spider-Man, all three of them did the points to each other, just like the little meme thing. And then when he said about the Avengers, and he was like,
Toby's so supportive. Toby's so supportive. It's like, that's awesome. Who are the Avengers? And Andrew got,
you're in a band.
So it's like all these little things that you just sort of like, like you just forget.
I will say that mid-credit sequence did convince me that I actually need to see the Venom films because it was really funny. And if the rest of the Venom films are remotely like that,
not bad,
I think I'm gonna like
it. I've seen the first one, and I've seen the first one, and I know what the mid-credit scene of the second one is. So I will watch the second one. But it's good, like it's
perfectly fine. The second one, perfectly fine.
Anything with Woody Harrelson in, I'm down for. I'll be all over that. Want to play me in a film.
The final post credits is basically a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh my god!
It looks insane. Like,
is it Sam Raimi directing it as well?
Yeah.
Oh my Christ!
Yeah.
Toby's coming back. What's happening? Sam Raimi's back. Get Toby in. Get him
in. There were a couple of people. There was a point where you see Doctor Strange stood with a door open, but then it's like he's inside the multiverse, and there are two people stood behind him, and people in the cinema were pointing at those two people, and I couldn't figure out who they were, and I still don't know who they are.
I didn't get onto that. I noticed there was two Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there was more clapping when they realised that there was like an evil Doctor Strange.
Yeah, because
I don't know if that's a comic booky thing.
Well, they kind of is, and they kind of isn't, because there's a dude called, I actually wrote it down because I couldn't remember his name. Baron Mordo, who he kind of works with Dormammu. And does
that's Chiwetel Ejiofor. I probably butchered his name.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Chiwetel Ejiofor. That he plays Baron Mordo in this. Yeah. He's his own character.
See, that's the thing. So I don't know. That's the thing. And I know that the girl with the shield on a denim jacket.
Yeah.
That's is it America Chavez or something in the comics. That's who that is.
Don't know.
She's pretty new. She's a young Avenger.
Oh, right, okay. So it potentially
would make sense why Kate Bishop's in it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But I know that is, but the other person, I've no idea.
Right.
Like, But I've seen her run around, but I don't know if she was the same person that you're talking about, if that makes sense.
Well, I've not actually watched them yet, and I don't know why, admittedly, but isn't there an evil version of Doctor Strange in What If?
Yes.
There's
an evil Doctor Strange doppelganger in What If who looks a bit more obviously evil because he's like paler and more gaunt.
His eyebrows do this. That's it.
Yeah, his eyebrows are a bit more. Yeah,
his eyebrows are pointing inwards.
Yeah.
Because they did another What If thing with the cape with Spider-Man. Because I thought that was a little.
Yeah, because they had the cape. Yeah.
So just a little like, there you go. But,
I did wonder as well, because it just reminded, because the cape obviously saved Ned, and you heard all the stories about Jacob losing all this weight, and like some of my kids were telling me, oh, that's because he's going to be like this universe's equivalent of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 Green Goblin, and I was like, okay, and like I don't know. Everyone's making a big deal like, oh, he lost weight for this film, and I was like, I mean, good on him, but I don't see what in this film
did
he
we
needed
need
to lose weight for.
Yeah.
To be fair,
if he just wanted to lose weight for his own sake, you can say that. It doesn't need to have been for the film, because I don't see anything in this film that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, Tom Holland got jacked for this film because he constantly has to appear shirtless. Like,
I'm assuming Tobey Maguire probably got in a bit of shape to don the Spider-Man suit again. Like, he's of that age where I'm assuming he's still in pretty good shape, but not in lycra shape. So he was kind of like, I'll do this. But yeah, I only realized as well that Ned had no hair. So that's a wig. I only realized that like about 4 months ago. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, Ned's got no hair. Jesus Christ. He must have like finished on set and been like, oh, that's a wrap. And he's just gone, wee. Like, oh my God. But yeah, it must have been a wig the whole time.
Whereabouts does this rank for you then, Ads, in our little tier list?
This is what I was about to do. So, before we get to the tier list, one thing that I do want to mention, just because of how amazing Andrew Garfield is in this film, if you want to go and watch another film that is amazing, then go and watch Tick Tick Boom on Netflix.
Watching that tonight.
It's so good. It is so good.
I can't be doing with any more Jonathan Larson, thank you.
Just shut your face, you. What do you mean any more Jonathan Larson?
Oh,
like, for me, it was just Rent, right? And now I've just got Tick Tick Boom in my head all the time.
He looks like he's acting very well in it, to be fair.
Absolutely fantastic. Anyway,
I think he's such a good actor anyway. I think.
Yeah. Right. So tier list. I've not put this online, so I'll go through it again so that Ty knows where we put things. So basically, we did a tier list of all the Spider-Man films, right?
I'm not going to agree.
So
that's fine.
We had nothing in fail.
Okay.
We had in third, so we basically did it university degree style. So third, we had Spider-Man 3. 2-2, we had The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. 2-1, Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Far From Home. And then a first, so the tip top, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay.
So
there's only one I don't agree with, but go on.
I disagreed with Homecoming, I think.
Yeah,
I thought that was a high 2-1.
I vetoed it because it's my favourite.
That's a bit high.
It is for me as well.
You shut your face.
I think, Have you seen? Go on, sorry.
So when it came down to ranking, I think we agreed Spider-Man 3 was the worst. And then in the 2-2 category, we disagreed on which was better out of Amazing and Amazing 2. I thought Amazing 2 was better. I thought Amazing 1 was better.
I think Amazing 2 is more impactful.
I'd agree with that. I think that might affect me more than because I put
I don't think it's necessarily like a better like film.
Yeah,
I think the issues and the outcome and all that.
Because I thought Amazing Spider-Man was a more forgettable film, whereas like there's a lot more flaws probably in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but the good stuff is that good. Like him swinging through the streets of New York still hasn't been surpassed. I thought that was actually pretty garbage at the beginning of this film. I did you just see a still shot of MJ and Spider-Man and seeing the city behind them. And then it was, what was in tier 1 again, Ads? 2-1. It was Spider-Man 1
and Far From Home.
I think that was the order we both had it in, wasn't it? Like Spider-Man 1, then that.
I'll go with that, yeah.
And then your favourite was Homecoming, then it was Spider-Verse, then it was Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Mine was Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 2, and then Homecoming.
Yeah.
Have you seen Spider-Man 2.5?
No. Amateurs. What I'll say
call yourselves a film podcast.
I know, this is it, innit? Just because of my issues with the first hour, I think No Way Home is a 2-1.
Okay. I don't know if I get a vote because
you get a vote. You're on the podcast.
I would probably say it's probably up there with Into the Spider-Verse, I would say.
Yeah, same for me. I am genuinely struggling because I said Into the Spider-Verse was my favourite out of the ones before this. I think Spider-Verse might just pip this, but just.
I think I understand about the first hour thing, but at the same time, I feel like if they jump right into it, there was a lot of stories to tell for this one to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it took as long as it did, which I understand what you're saying. It was kind of a bit like, okay, all right, like churning out all sorts. But if they didn't do that, I don't think the second hour or the rest of the film, I suppose, would have hit the same if they hadn't have. Because you've got to think they were setting up essentially 3 Spider-Men and 3 sets of universal villains.
Yeah. I think
so
the stuff you love ads about Force Awakens so much is what I love about this film so much. I think it does such a good to have that much fan service in a film, but for it to not feel forced, not feel contrived, for it to appeal to people who have just grown up with Tom Holland, people who would have grown up with Garfield, and people who would have grown up with Maguire. All 3 of those fans will be utterly satisfied, and for it to do that as well as it did, with the story of the multiverse behind it, and with it being very distinctly MCU, I think it's an absolute triumph. This film is an absolute triumph.
If we're looking at MCU films, my favorite film out of all of them, by a country mile, is the first Avengers, because I think it's perfect for exactly what it needed to be to make the idea of all the previous films make sense. And I think this falls into the same category for me. Like nothing's got better than the purity of the first Avengers. Everything else after that is amazing, and it's the other Avengers after are really good. But that as a singular moment of nobody's ever done 5 films of 5 different people and then put all 5 of them in one, or 6 of them if you like, and made it work and give them enough time to tell their story. That you've got people who just went to see Captain America, who just went to see Iron Man, and went into that film and was like, okay, I need to go back and watch these films because I got enough time to enjoy Captain America, but all these other people, I need to know who they are too. And I think that it's perfect the way it was done from start to finish for the Avengers for me, and that's just me. But this feels the same.
I'll yield then. We'll stick it in first.
I think the only reason for me Spider-Verse pips it is because it can't rely on nostalgia at all.
It's totally new, and
it has to do everything from scratch. It's just done everything you just said, Ty, exactly the same, at least as well, but with characters. Like a lot of people will have gone into that film not knowing who Miles Morales is.
Well, that's the thing, Like I think even with, like we were saying before, I think even with this one, with the Spider-Man, like that huge moment of Andrew Garfield saving MJ, they've got to go into that scene knowing that half the people who went to see that wouldn't have got that reference. Wouldn't have even understood why that's such a big thing. So that's huge, I think, to do it that way.
I have got to get going because I'm pretty sure I'm late for a dinner date.
Right. We are going to wrap this up because, apologies, people, there's probably a Spider-Man film that's shorter than the amount of time that we've been talking on this podcast. So to wrap up very quickly, thank you both very much for this. If you like what you heard and you've not yet gone back, go back and listen to our other Spider-Man franchise episodes. There's 3 to go through each iteration of Spider-Man. And in the usual places, you can help support Farrand Film by going onto our Twitter page and follow us on Twitter. Go to our sponsor, Off-World Tees. Use the code Farrand, that's FARRAND, for 15% off your order. Stay safe, look after each other. We will see you next time for the end of year awards. Woo! Bye.